Well, greetings from Marblehead, Massachusetts, where I am because I'm visiting both of my kids and their families. I spent the past weekend in Holyoke, Mass for the International Volleyball Hall of Fame induction ceremony. It's a great weekend. Any of you volleyball fans out there, I can't recommend it enough. It was so cool. There were so many people there. And on the American side, the only USA player who was inducted this year was beach volleyball legend Phil Dalhausser. But it was there were just other people who were just so great. Go read the stories. And one final plug for that. When you're done watching this, if you haven't seen the video of Kathy DeBoer's speech, she was given the Mintonette Medallion Award. I'm telling you, it's the best speech ever. And if you don't laugh and tear up a little bit, I'm telling you. Anyway, enough about that. How about NCAA volleyball? What another crazy week. Emily, you had, of course, the match of the season for, all that it was worth and then some.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm still on a come down from it. Like today, I feel like I was just in the dumps because that was so fun and everything's not going to live up to it anymore. But no, it was seriously like, I mean, going into it, like Lincoln, we talked a lot and it was like, this is.
And Emily, let me interrupt you one second because a good host would have said, and Lincoln Arneal joins us. He's from Huskers Illustrated and also.
I'm not good at my job.
No, it's like, I am what I am, volleyballmag.com, Super 16 media Bolster as well, who gives really good insight. If you haven't read his stuff, you need to at Huskers Illustrated. So anyway, back to Emily Ehman.
Well, no, I was saying we want to hype up matches as much as you can, just one for the sport and two for the programs and stuff. And this one, it was easy to hype up. You have 1 versus 2 undefeated teams coming in. That hasn't happened undefeated in that sense since 1998, 2 first 1 and 2 teams since 2019, blah, 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 blah. I mean, and then you just really are hoping and praying the match is going to be good. And I think coming into that, Lee, we talked, and I honestly, like, if I'm being candid, I said, I don't know how Nebraska is going to hold up against Wisconsin. I had just seen them on Wednesday and they absolutely rolled Ohio State and just their physicality. I didn't know how a team was going to compete with that. And somehow Nebraska just kept finding a way after, getting rolled set 2 and set 3, didn't give up. They had some players, Harper Murray, who was hitting negative until the 5th set. Our stats also went down, which is really tough. They went down after, when was that? After set 2, Lincoln?
Yeah, it was the joke was that Wisconsin blocked the stat. So it was after set 2, yes.
So they have 12.
I couldn't watch. I was doing the score thing, right? So I had the phone off to the side with the score, and that went dead.
Nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so Wisconsin has 12 blocks in set 2, and then, we're talking about how the team's hitting so bad in set 3, but we didn't really know. We see Nebraska hitting 90 balls out of bounds, but we didn't know what they were hitting. And, I'm talking about how Harper Murray's really struggling. I don't have the numbers in front of me. You want to give viewers that so they don't just, not that they shouldn't trust me, but, I think I'm doing a good job, but I don't know. And then finally the stats go back on, I think at like the end of the 4th or maybe even when the 5th started. And it was nice for us to know that the stuff we were talking about was playing out. So I was like, okay, thank God I'm not horrible at my job. But it was crazy. And then Harper Murray started going off. She was 7 for 9 in the 5th set, and they just found a way to win. I mean, they're down 10-8 and you think the match is kind of over, but they just kept coming. And it was just a crazy, like, storybook ending for this program that was really, really in need of that win, I think, just as a program and for their confidence.
Lincoln, you've been documenting this team in this season so far, and might I add, win, lose, or draw, I think there's a book there, so you should be saving your notes. But man, you've seen some stuff, haven't you?
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. I mean, I think everyone had kind of, luckily they're all based off too from the volleyball day in Nebraska, the stadium match to this was kind of number 2 on the checklist of things everyone was anticipating. And like Emily said, it really lived up to the hype too. And I think, John Cook talked about how this is just match number 10 in the Big Ten. Yeah. You're watching John Cook and that after the match, he was over there jumping around with the students. He was wearing his red cowboy
He was the
hat.
most excited one.
He was, you rarely see him. He stays very stoic and very businesslike, but he was smiling. He was having a good time after that. So you could tell it meant a little bit more to him and the program.
Yeah. You know what I loved? He came up by the booth after, because he always does a post-game interview with John Baylor, the radio guy. And he came up after and he had to walk right by us to go down to John. And I was like, Cook, like, what the heck? And he was like, honestly, no idea. And I was like, I don't know either. Like, you guys just had grit. And he's holding up the stats, looking at me. He's like, yeah, it's crazy. Like, we outkilled them, but it didn't feel like it. I'm like,
Wow.
I have no idea other than literally just a gritty win that they managed to get out of.
For sure.
Lincoln,
Yeah.
did you talk to Harper Murray after?
We did, yes. And I mean, we asked her about what the difference was. Did anything kind of click, or did she find any ways to beat the Wisconsin defense in that fifth set? And she said, no, she just went up with confidence. And I think towards the end of that fourth set, she had the key kill when Wisconsin had match point. And I don't know whether that just kind of instilled the confidence in her to really kind of rally. And I think Bergen Riley gave her a little bit better positioning too to go off how she did. So, but she didn't really kind of provide any insight about what the key was that allowed her to have such a drastic. I mean, 7 kills and I think it was 35 attacks in the first 4, and then like Emily said, 7 for 9 in the fifth. It was just impressive turnaround.
Yeah.
Oh, just great fifth set. I mean, even for those of us just watching play by play and seeing Harper Murray. But there's no doubt in my mind, she's the in that match, the athlete with the highest ceiling, and she is the most athletic of all the people in that match. And there's a lot of good athletes in that match. I mean, you think Julio Orzo, Lexi Rodriguez, just for 2, but Harper Murray's just got gifts. Accordingly, on the volleyballmag.com Super 16 media poll, Nebraska and Wisconsin traded places. So now Nebraska's 1, Wisconsin's 2, Stanford stayed 3. But because Washington State took that tough loss last week, Louisville moved up to 4, Texas to 5. There's 3 teams that I think we should not be sleeping on, and Texas is definitely one of them.
Kentucky's heating up a lot. I think they had a really tough start to the year, and after going 2-6, they're now 8-1 in conference play. Rutherford's back. I think Kentucky's a really good team.
And the third one, Florida State. I'm telling you, Florida State is going to disrupt the NCAA tournament bracket like nobody's business.
They're good. They're really good.
Yeah, and you always see things afterwards. Like I see that in our list here as I'm reading it, Dayton tied with Kansas back in the rankings at 16. I didn't boldface that, and I can go back into WordPress later and fix that. But
Dayton's. We talked about this last time. Dayton's, for example, I was going into last week wanting to know more about Tennessee, and they lose the game to Arkansas, they lose the game to Kentucky. And then we kind of learned about them and sort of where they stand. They did fine in those matches, but I think of a team like Dayton, you've only beaten Western Kentucky and you've lost to Marquette and Louisville, both in 5, which are good losses. But like, for me, I think you need to prove that you should be in the top 16, not just not losing. And I know it's hard with these conferences. Who are they playing? I get that, but.
So are you saying that my vote at number 16 for the Citadel, 22-0, is flawed? Are you saying, is that what you're saying?
What did your comment say? I started laughing out loud.
It's like, I don't care.
You're like, RPI be damned.
Yeah, right. It was me. I'm the one who did it. Blame me for that.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, God, they got to get something. So at least they had the one vote, and but anyway, to continue with the list, Pittsburgh at 7. Gosh, Louisville back at Pittsburgh is going to be so good. Oregon lost to Stanford, which is not a bad loss. I mean, gosh,
it's a good game.
Fabulous. BYU at 9. I still think I'm not 100% sure that BYU is not undervalued and shouldn't be 4, 5, or 6. Arkansas took the tough loss to drop from 7 to 10. Then Georgia Tech moved up a couple to 11. Tennessee at 12. Penn State. Is that a bad loss against Purdue? I don't know.
Could have gone. That's a flip of a coin match.
And I'm still surprised. Kentucky at 14. I'm still surprised Florida's in our rankings. And then Kansas, Dayton. Dayton has a great week and drops 3 spots or whatever it did. I don't know, 15 to 16. Anyway, but
I'm curious. Did you guys? And if you don't want to share, totally fine. Did you guys have Florida in your top 16?
I did not.
I think I dropped them after they lost to Mississippi State. I mean, Florida, I struggle with a little bit too because they have the good early season resume, but since they lost Stuckey, after they lost Mississippi State, I think I dropped them out of my 16.
Yeah, but also getting votes for us is Creighton, Baylor, Purdue, Florida State, USC, and the Citadel, Arizona State dropped out and didn't get votes. It's kind of harsh. I mean, granted, tough loss, but they came back and we're better. The AVCA poll, finally, those coaches getting in line with the volleyballmag.com Super 16 media poll. But then after, they've got Purdue at 16, Creighton at 17, Dayton at 18. Dayton can't get any respect from those coaches. Then Florida, Baylor, Arizona State, Houston, Western Kentucky, Auburn, and UC Santa Barbara moves in. I have not watched the Gauchos. I report on them. I've typed them all. I know how good they're doing, but 20-2, good for them getting in at 25.
Yeah,
I know there's a bunch of. Go ahead, Lincoln.
I would say they lost to Oregon and they lost to Drake in in a weekend tournament in Ames. So, but they have some impressive wins. They beat Utah, Long Beach, and they have one other quality win too. So and
they the big showdown will be with Hawaii, of course, but that's a 2-game lead in the Big West. They have a tournament, I'm pretty sure. So it's right now they could be a 1-bid league. The other teams getting votes in the AVCA, Minnesota, UCF, tough week for UCF, went to Baylor, and UCF was riding high. And of course, we had Jenny Moore on with us a couple weeks ago. Emily and I did, and tough trip to Baylor. But then Marquette, Indiana, USC, Iowa State, Ohio State. Who is voting Ohio State still in the top 25?
I don't know. I just talked to someone about this too.
James Madison.
I looked up who did. It was 2 coaches whose last names also start with O. It was the Morgan State head coach, and I'm blanking on the other one. And they both had him 16th, I think, or 18th, whatever the points were. So
how was that possible? Like, and I know coaches don't have time, whatever. But and I will say also about this, which is what I was going to say earlier. I know there's a bunch of hullabaloo online about someone voting Wisconsin over Nebraska. I struggle with this, and I think I understand where someone might be coming from. Of you can watch that match and maybe think that Wisconsin might be the better team overall. However, if you beat the team in the week, they deserve to be number 1. Like that, I think that you can think a team's better, but based on their wins and that, they deserve to be the number 1 team. So I understand maybe where he's coming from, but it also doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
well, for James Madison to get enough, she got 5 points for James. And, Coastal Carolina, if you're going to vote a Sun Belt Conference team, Coastal Carolina is 10-0. Texas State is storming back. I mean, if you want to vote for somebody in a mid-major, so those kind of things, they drive me nuts. But
I think, Emily, Nebraska fans like to take any minor slight and blow it way out of proportion. They're already calling to schedule the team whose coach put them behind Wisconsin at number 2. So
it's just funny that
Nebraska fans aren't handling it well.
It's just they want to feel like the underdog, but guys, you're the number 1 team. Just calm down. You're good.
Enjoy the win. Yeah.
You had a great win.
Rankings.
My God, that was a fun game. Enjoy it. Come on. Also, who cares?
Well, the problem, though, is that the AVCA poll is one of the things that the committee can refer to. They don't refer to our poll yet. And so for that reason, I don't know if it has influence. It's not one of the factors.
Well, eye test.
Eyeball test. Hey, look, if we're doing eyeball test strictly and we throw out all the rest of it, Stanford's my number 1 team. I didn't vote Stanford.
Really?
I went, I think in my particular poll, I went Wisconsin, Nebraska, Stanford, Wisconsin. I think that's what I personally did. And
super fair.
It's not like Nebraska had a bad loss, 15-13, when it could have been 14-14 in the 5th. But, losing has to have consequences, though, in a poll.
Totally. I agree. I also think that, I don't necessarily agree with the poll in terms of 1, 2, 3, and where I think those teams should be, having seen them. But wins matter and losses matter.
Yeah. The hard part I kind of struggle with too is how long do the head-to-heads last? Nebraska beat Stanford, but if Stanford is annihilating everyone, does Nebraska have to stay in front of Stanford the entire year if they lose the second rematch with Wisconsin?
It's a new team.
It's a different team. Teams evolve.
Play starts. I don't know.
I'm still, I wanted Washington State to keep winning because win, lose, or draw, I'm going out to see them weekend after next. and it would make for a better story if they're riding high. So come on, Cougs.
USC's good. Like,
Oh,
I
absolutely.
mean,
USC's got a lot of good personnel.
like, I mean, when you have Skylar Fields in your team, it definitely helps. But my God, seeing them even in non-conference play, like, I was like, this team is going to upset a lot of people, and they're also going to lose a lot of games they shouldn't lose. But you know, it depends on the night for them, and honestly, depends on who's healthy and if they're actually full go. Even I think I had them over a month ago at Purdue, and even then, like, Skylar Fields was practicing maybe once a week. Like, she wasn't even practicing, and I can't imagine now I have no idea, but I imagine she's probably rarely practicing with the schedule. So, you know, it probably depends on however she's doing is how the team's going to do.
Well, you said that when you saw them at Purdue early.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying.
You said they're gonna beat people they shouldn't
Yeah.
beat, probably, and they're gonna lose to some people they shouldn't lose to. They're that
Yeah.
kind of team, you know, and that's yeah. Lincoln, because there's so many young players on the Nebraska team, but they're playing such a high. How much better do you think the Huskers can be this year? And do you think there's like, or do you think that, like, you know, what we see is what we've got, at least for right now?
I think we're close. I mean, on a scale, maybe 80%. I still think there's room for improvement. You saw a little bit the progress they made against Wisconsin, especially from the service line.
Yeah.
But I think it's consistency. That's the thing. What you see a lot of times with young teams is maintaining that high level of play, night in, night out, regardless of who you're playing and what environment you're playing on. I think what we saw previously against Nebraska's road, they're a different team on the road, so they need to have some things to figure out, and they'll get some better tests in the second half of the Big Ten. So I think we're seeing a lot of what Nebraska can do, but I credit a lot to that Wisconsin win to just determination and grit, and not overall finesse and skill set. So there's some polishing to do there, but I think as far as mental toughness, this is the Nebraska team we're going to see the rest of the year.
They're playing at home too in that match, and certainly, you know, there's a reason why home teams win more than visiting teams, right?
For
sure. Yes.
Yeah.
And I feel like, and you know, they play at Penn State, they play at Wisconsin. I don't know how, you know, if Minnesota gets their stuff together, maybe that game at the end of the season could be good too. But I mean, you're playing at Rec Hall, that's really tough. And when they got Penn State the first time, that was not the Penn State that we've been seeing all year. So I agree. I think I feel like I agree with the 80%. Like, there's still more improvement they could have, which is scary for this team because they're already so good. But for a player, especially like Harper Murray, I think back to, you know, last season, for example, with Eva Hudson, like crushing it right away. And then you're a freshman, people start figuring you out. They now have a scouting report on you. They know what you're going to do in certain situations. Whereas when you're first starting out, teams have no idea what you're going to give them. And to see her now work through that, I think is going to tell us a lot about her at the end of the season, where, you know, she's finding ways to score, or in these big moments stepping up, and we're learning that she's like as gritty as they come.
That's the one thing I was impressed with the last two matches. I mean, she's even against Northwestern last week on Wednesday. She kind of had a very nondescript first two sets, but that third set, I don't know whether she just figured out or got into the flow of the game, and she kind of took over that third set against Northwestern as well too. And you saw in the fifth set of Wisconsin. So I think that, I mean, her volleyball IQ is very high, and whether she's just trying to figure out what works for her and the flow of the game. So I'm excited to see that. And I mean, I think Minnesota will be a good test because they may be fine for their tournament life at that point too. And they need a marquee win to punch their ticket for the postseason.
Yeah. I have them Thursday at Purdue, and I'm interested to see if they show up. I really hope they do. They almost went 5 with Michigan State. I think it was yesterday, but they were down like, I want to say 19-11 and came back and won like 25-20. So I don't know, with this team, they could turn it on and be electric, or they could be very flat. So I'm hoping Thursday is a good game. I just really want to see this team turn it on because they have the pieces to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's one thing when I saw them too, I was just in person, I was surprised how much Melanie Schaffmaster struggled with her movement. And I wonder how much she's practicing and how much that in turn, I mean, an outside hitter can find it, but if your setter is not at full go during the week, that takes you down a notch, I think, is what your potential is.
When I saw them in the preseason at Stanford and wrote a story actually about Melanie and how she was, playing so well with such, you know, limited mobility. She's such a good player. And obviously when she has to hit the floor, getting back up is a tedious process for her because her leg just, turns her into a tripod, or whatever.
I
But
mean, if I'm playing them, I'm gonna tip every ball at her.
yeah, but I got a lot of respect for how tough she is and how well she's playing.
Yeah.
Lincoln, I have not had a chance to look at the schedule at all, so I'm counting on you and Emily to bail me out here. What's up ahead this week in the Big Ten and specifically for Nebraska?
I'll tell you, Nebraska has Maryland and Rutgers are coming to town, so it's a little bit different feeling than the last week. I don't know if it's a trap game necessarily, but it's
Everybody gets
different. It's a different level
all
of
due
competition.
respect, but
Yeah, I still think the players will be focused. I mean, Nebraska players will think, but the atmosphere is going to be completely different. I think the fans will be set up for a bigger letdown and kind of the atmosphere they create coming after that high. So that's what they have this week, at least. So
Yeah. Otherwise, in the Big Ten, not like the biggest games. I mean, there's one big one on Sunday, but Purdue, Minnesota Thursday again. I mean, I'm on that. I hope it's a good game. I think it will be if Minnesota shows up, but again, we'll see what happens. Otherwise, Sunday we got Wisconsin, Minnesota on Fox, the first game ever on Fox, which I'm very excited for. And then Ohio State, Michigan's also on Fox, but might not be a very good game.
Yeah.
Mine might not be. Wisconsin, Minnesota probably won't be the best game either, but I hope it is.
Yeah. The other one that I got my eye on is Indiana and Illinois too. I think Indiana needs to win that one as they want to kind of solidify their spot in the top 4 or 5 teams in the Big Ten too. I mean, that one's at Illinois, so a little bit more challenging for the Hoosiers, but
it's a must win. I mean, they're 46 RPI. Illinois is, I think, top 100. Like, they need that win.
Yeah, that's one that Indiana can't afford to drop if they really want to build their postseason resume.
Mm-hmm.
I am so excited that Cal has 3 Pac-12 victories and that Chrissy and Savannah, who got that job right before the season started, and they're doing so great. I'm so excited for them. I'm so excited for Cal. And really, Chrissy, the head coach, should seriously be considered for National Head Coach of the Year. And Cal's going to finish in the bottom third of the Pac-12. That is just so cool. This week, you got Florida, Tennessee on Wednesday.
No. Mizzou, Tennessee, Wednesday. I'm on that.
Wednesday, October 25th. It says, Florida. Oh, my bad. Reading it wrong. Thank you. See,
I was like, unless I'm prepping, I'm prepping for the fully wrong game, I think it's Mizzou, Tennessee.
Well, you could be, but Florida plays Ole Miss on Wednesday and Tennessee plays Missouri.
It's going to be a good game. When I got the game, I was like, this is going to be a blowout. This is going to be fun. Mizzou won 2 conference games last year, and they're rolling right now. They're 30 in RPI, and they just took down Auburn. Tennessee's coming off 2 losses to Arkansas and Kentucky, but honestly, it should be a really good SEC battle. The SEC right now, they have 9 teams in their top 55 RPI. Like, SEC's crushing it.
They had the most teams in last year into the tournament. And of course, I'm gone this weekend here in Boston, and Kentucky plays at LSU, where I live in Baton Rouge, so I don't get to see Kentucky. And well, what are you going to do? That's on Friday, and then Sunday in the SEC,
Arkansas, Florida,
Florida, yep, and that's a good one.
I hope it's a good one. I from what I've seen from Arkansas lately and Florida, I hope Florida's able to put up a good fight and kind of keep their resume together.
I'm not 100% sure that we won't learn a lot when Texas plays Baylor Thursday and Friday. That's a big match for Baylor and another chance for Texas to keep rolling. Texas is going to be right there in the mix to get into the Final Four. Do
you guys like that Big 12 format? I haven't asked your opinion on that, where they do the double headers, kind of the back-to-back games.
Players and the coaches don't, because it doesn't simulate the NCAA tournament. But if you're media or a fan, I mean, like if I were home this week and not traveling, I would have gone to Waco to watch those 2 or I'm sorry, it's in Austin. There's anything bad ever about going to Austin, but Baylor, Texas, I don't know. I personally like it, but I'm not a coach or a player.
Yeah, I'm thinking from like a coach or player perspective, it's probably really frustrating when I guess you could look at it 2 ways. One, say you have like injuries or stuff going on with your team. There's no adjustment period to have like a few weeks and then reset. So that's really frustrating. But then also you can make game time adjustments, and it's fun from that perspective of seeing like, okay, night to night, what are the teams doing differently? What did they learn from last night? But no, overall, I would rather it be spread out. I don't like it, mostly from an like injury standpoint and health. Because I don't think it's fair, but
All right, we'll finish with this. The 22-0 Citadel Bulldogs, who got a vote in the volleyballmag.com Super 16 media poll. The Bulldogs, Bulldogs go to Mercer for a SoCon match, and then to Western Carolina. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, 0-24 St. Peter's slogs on in the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference, the MAAC, home for Iona with the kid who got the 60 kills this year, and then home for Manhattan College. Come on, go Peacocks, break through.
come on.
That's all I got. Lincoln, great to have you join us. This was way cool.
Okay.
Let's plan on the rematch. I love to remind Emily of this, that when Nebraska goes to Wisconsin the day after Thanksgiving,
My birthday.
I'll be at that match. She'll be working
Birthday?
somewhere else. Lincoln,
I'll be
you'll-
celebrating my birthday in Wisconsin with you. So
Nice.
I'm not,
All right,
What-
we'll be hanging out.
whatever.
Thank you both. Thanks, Lincoln. Thanks, Emily. We always have more fun than we deserve. And thanks for everybody who watches this. It's really cool. We really appreciate it. And there you go.